The morning sun rose over the crystal cities of Kythera Prime, casting rainbow patterns through the tall spires that housed millions of peaceful beings. The Kythari people had built their civilization on knowledge and harmony. For 3,000 years they had never known war. Their biggest problems were trade disputes and academic debates. Zara Ka, the elected speaker of the Kythari collective, stood in her office high above the main city. She watched the floating gardens drift between the towers, carrying fresh food to the markets below. Children of many different species played together in the parks. The Kythari had always welcomed other peaceful races to live among them. "Speaker, we have a problem," said her assistant, rushing into the room. His 4 eyes were wide with fear. "Long-range sensors are picking up something strange at the edge of our system." Zaraka turned from the window. She had never seen her assistant so scared. "What kind of something?" "Ships, lots of them. But they're not like any ships we know. They look alive." The screen in Zaraka's office lit up with images from their outer sensors. What she saw made her blood run cold. The ships were indeed alive, massive creatures of flesh and bone with weapons that looked like giant teeth and claws. Each ship was the size of a city. "Have they responded to our greeting signals?" Zaraka asked. "They have, Speaker. But you won't like what they said." The communication came through in a harsh, growling language that their computers had to translate. "We are the Vorthak hegemony. Your worlds now belong to us. Surrender or be consumed." Zaraka felt her legs grow weak. In all their history, no one had ever threatened the Kythari. They had always solved problems with words, not weapons. "Send a reply," she said. "Tell them we want to talk. Offer them trade agreements, technology sharing, anything they want." The answer came back quickly. It was a video message that made Zaraka sick to her stomach. The Vorthak leader was a massive creature with razor-sharp teeth and glowing red eyes. Behind him she could see cages filled with beings from other worlds, beings that were clearly being prepared as food. "We do not trade with prey," the creature snarled. "We take what we want. You have 1 day to prepare for our arrival." The transmission ended. Zaraka's office fell silent except for the soft humming of the city outside. Her people had no weapons, no armies, no way to fight back. Their defense fleet was made up of small ships designed for rescue missions and exploration, not war. "Call an emergency meeting of all world leaders," Zaraka said, "and contact our allies in the Galactic Council. Someone must be able to help us." Over the next few hours, the responses came in from across the galaxy. The Altarian Republic sent their regrets but said they were too far away to help. The Centauri Federation offered to take in refugees but couldn't send military aid. The Andorian Trade Union simply stopped answering their calls. Then came the message that broke Zaraka's heart. The Galactic Council, the organization that was supposed to protect peaceful worlds, sent a simple reply. "The Vorthak hegemony is too powerful. We cannot risk war with them. We advise immediate evacuation." As night fell on Kythera Prime, the first Vorthak ships entered the system. They moved like predators, slow and confident. They knew their prey had nowhere to run. The attack began at dawn. The Vorthak bioships released swarms of smaller creatures that dove toward the planet like falling stars. When they hit the outer defense platforms, they exploded with organic acid that ate through metal and crystal alike. The beautiful floating gardens fell from the sky as the creatures destroyed their anti-gravity systems. The crystal towers began to crack and fall as the acid rain spread across the city. People ran through the streets carrying their children and crying for help that would not come. Zaraka stood in her emergency bunker, watching her world die on dozens of screens. Her communications officer worked frantically at his station, sending out message after message. "Any response from the galactic powers?" She asked. "Nothing, Speaker. Everyone is too afraid of the Vorthak to help." "Then send a general distress call. Send it on all frequencies to every world, every ship, every listening post in the galaxy. Someone somewhere must be willing to help innocent people." The message went out across space, carried by quantum communication arrays to every corner of known civilization. It was simple and desperate. "This is the Kythari Collective. We are under attack by the Vorthak hegemony. Our people are dying. We have never harmed anyone. We ask for help from any civilization that believes in protecting the innocent. Please, if you can hear this, help us." Most worlds that received the message simply deleted it. The Vorthak were too dangerous to anger. Better to stay quiet and hope they never came your way. But on a small blue world at the edge of the galaxy, a human operator named Lieutenant Sarah Martinez was working the night shift at the Deep Space Monitoring Station. She had been listening to alien chatter for 3 years, mostly routine trade communications and scientific data. When the Kythari distress call came through, Sarah sat up straight in her chair. She had heard of the Kythari. They were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful traders and scholars. The translation software worked quickly, turning the alien words into English. Sarah listened to the whole message twice. Then she listened to the follow-up transmissions that came over the next hour. Updates on the attack, casualty reports, desperate pleas for help. The alien sounded terrified. She picked up her phone and called her supervisor. "Sir, you need to hear this. We've got aliens asking for military help against something called the Vorthak hegemony." "The Vorthak?" Her supervisor's voice was suddenly very serious. "Send me everything you have. Right now." Within an hour, the message was on its way up the chain of command. From the monitoring station to Pacific Fleet Command. From there to the Pentagon, and finally to Admiral Sarah Chen, the head of the Terran Defense Coalition. Admiral Chen was in her office at dawn when the priority message came through. She read the translation of the Kythari distress call, then watched the video footage that had been intercepted from the attack. The images showed a peaceful world being destroyed by creatures that looked like nightmares, cities burning, people running in terror, children crying as their homes fell around them. It reminded her of old videos from Earth's worst conflicts. Chen had spent her whole career preparing for the day when humanity might face a real threat from space. She had never imagined that the first real test would be whether humans were willing to fight for strangers. She picked up her secure phone and began making calls, first to the president, then to allied military leaders around the world. The conversation was the same each time. "We have aliens asking for help against genocidal attackers. They're peaceful people being slaughtered for no reason. What do we do?" The answer, when it came, surprised even Admiral Chen. For the first time in human history, every major military power on Earth agreed on something immediately. They would help. The order went out to every naval base, every spaceport, every military installation on the planet. Prepare for immediate deployment. We're going to war. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the main command center of Luna Base, watching the largest military operation in human history take shape. Through the massive windows, she could see ships arriving from every corner of the solar system. The sight took her breath away. The American fleet came first, sleek destroyers and massive carriers that had been patrolling the outer planets. Then came the European Union ships, their hulls painted white with blue stripes. The Russian vessels were darker, built like floating fortresses. Chinese ships arrived in perfect formation, followed by Japanese cruisers that looked like works of art. But it wasn't just the major powers. Ships came from Brazil, India, Australia, Canada, and dozens of smaller nations. For the first time ever, humanity was united in a single cause. "Admiral," said Captain Rodriguez, her chief of staff, "we've got over 200 ships assembled. That's more firepower than we've ever put together." Chen nodded, but her face was troubled. "It might not be enough. We don't know what we're facing out there." The truth was that humanity had never fought a real space war. They had weapons designed for it, ships built for it, but no experience. The Vorthak had been conquering worlds for centuries. They knew how to fight in space. "Ma'am," called Lieutenant Kim from the communication station, "we're getting more intelligence from the Kythari system. It's not good." The main screen lit up with images from long-range sensors. 3 more Kythari worlds had fallen in the past day. The Vorthak weren't just conquering them. They were destroying everything. Cities burned, forests were stripped bare, and the orbital platforms that had taken centuries to build were being torn apart for raw materials. "They're not even trying to keep the infrastructure," observed Dr. Patel, the fleet's xenobiology expert. "This looks like they're treating the worlds as food sources." Chen felt her jaw tighten. She had seen enough wars to recognize pure evil when she saw it. The Vorthak weren't conquering for territory or resources. They were destroying for the joy of it. "Admiral," Rodriguez said quietly, "the President is on line 1. Chen picked up the secure phone. "Mr. President, Admiral, I want to be clear about your orders. You have full authority to engage the Vorthak forces. No restrictions. No rules of engagement beyond the laws of war. Stop them." "Understood, sir." "What about casualties?" "Our casualties, I mean. Those people out there are depending on us, Admiral. Do what you have to do." Chen hung up and looked around the command center. Every person there knew they were about to make history. The question was what kind of history it would be. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," she said into the fleet communication system. "We're about to jump into unknown territory to fight an enemy we've never faced before. Some of you are wondering why we're risking human lives for aliens we've never met." She paused, looking out at the assembled fleet. Each ship represented thousands of people who had volunteered for this mission. The answer is simple. We're doing this because it's right. These aliens asked for help and we're the only ones willing to give it. That says something about who we are as a species. Today we show the galaxy what humans do when innocent people are in danger. The response came back from 200 ships at once. "Understood, Admiral." "Ready to jump," Chen turned to her navigation officer. "Set course for the Kithari system. Maximum speed." The jump to hyperspace was unlike anything humans had attempted before. Instead of single ships or small groups, the entire fleet jumped together. The coordination required was incredible. One mistake could scatter ships across the galaxy or worse. But humanity had always been good at organizing for war. The fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kithari system in perfect formation. What they found there made every human crew member angry. The Kithari homeworld was burning. From space, they could see the massive fires covering entire continents. The beautiful crystal cities were gone, replaced by crude mining operations. Orbital stations that had floated peacefully for centuries were being dismantled by swarms of Vorthak ships. "Tactical. Give me a count on enemy forces," Chen ordered. "Over 300 Vorthak ships, Admiral. They're big. Some of them are larger than our biggest carriers." Chen studied the tactical display. The Vorthak ships were indeed massive, but they moved slowly. They looked organic, like giant space creatures rather than built vessels. "They don't know we're here yet," reported the sensor officer. "Their attention is focused on the planet." Chen made a decision that would echo through galactic history. Instead of announcing their presence or demanding surrender, she gave the order that started humanity's first interstellar war. "All ships, open fire. Priority targets are any Vorthak vessels attacking civilian areas." The human fleet struck like a thunderbolt. Missiles launched from hundreds of ships, crossing the space between the fleets in seconds. Railgun rounds followed, accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic fields. The Vorthak had never faced weapons like these. Their bioships were designed to absorb energy attacks and deflect plasma weapons. But kinetic weapons, simple pieces of metal traveling at enormous speeds, tore through their organic hulls like bullets through flesh. The first Vorthak ship to die was a massive creature that had been using some kind of energy beam to melt a Kithari city. 3 human missiles hit it simultaneously, and it simply came apart in the explosion of organic matter. "Direct hit," called the weapons officer. "Target destroyed." Across the fleet, similar reports came in. The surprise attack had caught the Vorthak completely off guard. In the first minute of combat, humanity destroyed 12 enemy ships, but the Vorthak were not helpless. As soon as they realized they were under attack, they turned to face this new threat. Their own weapons were terrifying. Bioships that launched swarms of smaller creatures, energy beams that could melt through metal, and something that looked like living projectiles. The first human ship to die was the destroyer Courage. A Vorthak bioprojectile hit it directly, and the entire ship was dissolved by some kind of acid in seconds. 200 human lives were gone in an instant. "They're adapting faster than expected," Chen observed grimly. "All ships, evasive maneuvers. Don't let them target you directly." The battle turned into a deadly dance. Human ships used their speed and maneuverability to avoid the Vorthak's powerful but slow weapons. In return, they hit the enemy with quick strikes from long range. But it was the human fighters that really surprised the Vorthak. Small, fast ships launched from the carriers and swarmed the enemy vessels like angry insects. The fighters were piloted by humans who had trained in Earth's atmosphere, dodging through gravity wells and weather systems that would kill most aliens. In space, with full 3-dimensional movement, human pilots were like nothing the Vorthak had ever faced. They flew patterns that made no sense to an enemy that thought in terms of straight-line attacks and defensive formations. "Fighter Squadron 12 to Fleet Command," came a voice over the radio. "We're getting reports from Vorthak ships. They're trying to jam our communications, but our equipment is cutting through their signals like they're not even there." Chen smiled grimly. Human technology might not be the most advanced in the galaxy, but it was built to work in the worst possible conditions. Earth's violent weather and strong magnetic field had forced human engineers to build electronics that could work anywhere. The battle raged for 3 hours. When it ended, the space around the Kytheri homeworld was filled with the wreckage of Vorthak bioships. The surviving enemy vessels were retreating to the outer system, clearly planning to regroup. Casualty report, Chen ordered. 15 ships lost, Admiral. About 3,000 casualties. But we destroyed over 60 enemy vessels, Chen nodded. The price was high, but they had won the first battle. More importantly, they had saved the surviving Kythari on the homeworld. Communications send a message to the planet's surface. Tell them help has arrived. The response came back in the musical language of the Kythari, translated by their computers. Who are you? Are you truly here to help us? Chen picked up the microphone herself. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Fleet. We received your distress call. We're here to help. There was a long pause. Then, humans, but your species is listed as dangerous in all our records. You come from a death world. Chen looked out at her fleet. Ships from every nation on Earth, crews who had volunteered to risk their lives for strangers. Maybe that's exactly what you need right now. The human medical ships were the first to reach the surface of Kythera Prime. Dr. Elena Vasquez stepped off the landing shuttle and tried not to show her shock at what she saw. The beautiful crystal cities she had seen in the intelligence briefings were gone. In their place were smoking ruins and hastily built refugee camps. The Kythari people were unlike anything humans had ever encountered. They stood about 7 feet tall with 4 arms and large eyes that seemed to glow with inner light. Right now, those eyes were filled with fear and hope in equal measure. You are truly here to help? Asked Zaraka, the Kythari leader who had sent the original distress call. Her translator device made her musical voice sound almost human. Your species is known to us only through trading reports. They say you are from a death world, that you are dangerous. Dr. Vasquez knelt down to examine a wounded Kythari child. The little one had been burned by Vorthak acid weapons, but the injuries were treatable with human medical technology. We are dangerous, she said simply, but only to those who hurt innocent people. Over the next few days, the galaxy learned what it meant when humans decided to help. Medical ships established field hospitals that treated not just Kythari, but refugees from dozens of other species who had fled Vorthak attacks. Engineering teams worked around the clock to restore power and clean water to the damaged cities. But it was the military response that really shocked the galactic community. Admiral Chen had divided her fleet into 3 groups. One stayed to protect the Kythari homeworld. The second group moved to secure the outer planets of the system. The third group, led by Chen herself, began hunting down the remaining Vorthak forces. The hunting was different from the first battle. This time, the humans weren't fighting to defend a fixed position. They were on the attack, and the Vorthak learned why Earth was called a death world. Captain Maria Santos commanded the destroyer, Relentless. She had grown up in the slums of São Paulo, where you learned to fight or you didn't survive. Now she was chasing a Vorthak bioship through an asteroid field, using skills that had been passed down through generations of humans who had fought to survive. Target is trying to hide. Behind the large asteroid, reported her weapons. Officer, he's thinking like prey, Santos said with a cold smile. On Earth, we learned to hunt in 3 dimensions. Take us under the asteroid field. We'll come up behind him. The Vorthak commander never saw it coming. His ship had been designed to fight in open space with clear lines of sight. When the human destroyer appeared directly beneath him, firing rockets at point-blank range, his bioship died before he could even understand what had happened. Across the system, similar scenes were playing out. Human ships moved like pack hunters, coordinating their attacks with a precision that amazed and terrified other species. They used the asteroids, the planets, even the system's star as weapons in their campaign. The Vorthak tried to adapt. They sent out their own hunting packs, bioships designed to track and kill smaller vessels. But they had never faced anything like human fighter pilots. Lieutenant Jake Wildfire Morrison was flying his fighter through the rings of Kythera's gas giant when he encountered a Vorthak hunter. The alien ship was 3 times the size of his fighter and armed with weapons that could vaporize him in seconds. Morrison had learned to fly in the skies above Colorado, dodging through mountain peaks and sudden storm fronts. In space, with no weather to worry about, he felt like he was flying in slow motion. The Vorthak ship fired a biomissile that should have killed him instantly. Morrison simply wasn't there when it arrived. He had already looped around a chunk of ice and was coming at his enemy from a completely different angle. His missiles hit the Vorthak ship from behind, tearing through its organic armor. The alien vessel tried to turn to face him, but Morrison was already gone, diving toward the planet's surface where the thick atmosphere would give him even more advantages. The chase lasted 20 minutes. When it ended, the Vorthak hunter was a cloud of organic debris floating among the ice rings. "This is wildfire to Fleet Command," Morrison reported. "Target destroyed. These things are big and scary, but they fly like trucks." Back on the Cathari homeworld, the aliens were learning what human dangerous really meant. Teams of human soldiers were clearing Vorthak ground forces from the cities with an efficiency that shocked everyone who watched. The Vorthak had left behind garrison troops, creatures designed for intimidation and crowd control. They were used to dealing with peaceful species who would run at the first sign of violence. They had never faced soldiers from a world where violence was a survival skill. Sergeant Tom Williams had fought in 3 different wars on Earth before humanity reached the stars. Now he was leading a squad of Marines through the ruins of a Cathari school, hunting down Vorthak troops who had been using the building as a torture center. The Vorthak soldiers were 7 feet tall with natural armor and claws like knives. In hand-to-hand combat, they could tear apart most alien species. But they had never fought humans before. Williams and his team moved through the building like ghosts. They used every piece of cover, every shadow, every sound to their advantage. When they finally confronted the Vorthak troops, the aliens found themselves facing an enemy that simply wouldn't stop coming. The Vorthak relied on fear and intimidation. They would roar and display their claws, expecting their enemies to run. Williams and his Marines just kept shooting. "Target down," Williams reported into his radio. "School is secure. We've got about 30 Cathari civilians safe in the basement." The response from the Cathari rescue teams was immediate. "Understood, Sergeant. Medical teams are on the way, and thank you." The news of human military success spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communication. For the first time in centuries, the Vorthak hegemony was not just being resisted, it was being defeated. Other alien civilizations began to take notice. The peaceful Altarians, who had refused to help the Cathari, sent a message asking if humanity might be interested in a defense treaty. The Centauri Federation offered to share their advanced shield technology in exchange for human weapons designs. But it was the message from the Galactic Council that really showed how much had changed. "Admiral Chen," came the transmission from the council chambers. "This is Chancellor Mortai of the Galactic Council. We wish to discuss the human military intervention in Cathari space." Chen took the call in her ready room aboard the flagship, Indomitable. The Chancellor was a tall, thin alien with gray skin and large black eyes. His species, the Dalari, had been the dominant political force in the galaxy for over 1,000 years. "Chancellor," Chen said simply, "what can I do for you?" "We are concerned about the implications of your actions. The Vorthak hegemony has been a stabilizing force in this region for centuries." Chen felt her temper rise. She had seen the footage from Vorthak-controlled worlds. "Stabilizing? They're committing genocide. The galaxy requires order, Admiral. Sometimes that order comes at a cost." Chen stood up from her chair. Her voice became very quiet and very dangerous. "Chancellor, let me make something clear. Humanity didn't ask for permission to defend innocent people, and we don't need it. We're going to keep fighting the Vorthak until they stop killing civilians. If you have a problem with that, you're welcome to try and stop us." The Chancellor's eyes widened. No one had ever spoken to the Galactic Council that way. "Admiral, you must understand your species is new to galactic politics. There are rules, protocols." "There's one rule that matters," Chen interrupted. "Don't murder innocent people. The Vorthak broke that rule. Now they deal with us." The transmission ended. Chen sat back down and smiled grimly. The galaxy was about to learn that humans didn't play by the old rules. On the bridge of the Indomitable, the tactical officer called out, "Admiral, we're getting reports from long-range scouts. Vorthak reinforcements are heading for this system. Looks like a major fleet movement." Chen nodded. She had expected this. "The Vorthak wouldn't give up easily. Send word to all human ships," she ordered, "and ask our Cathari friends if they want to help us fight. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten people under human protection." The galaxy was about to witness its first real war in centuries. And for the first time, the victims were going to win. The Vorthak Reinforcement Fleet was the largest military force assembled in over 200 years. 300 bioships, each one a living weapon bred for destruction, moved through space toward the Cathari system. At their head was the Devourer of Worlds, a massive ship creature that had personally conquered 47 planets. On the bridge of this monster, Supreme War Leader Krath Zahn studied the reports from the recent battles with growing confusion and rage. His forces hadn't just been defeated, they had been humiliated by a species he had never even heard of. Humans, he growled, tasting the word like something foul. What manner of prey dares to challenge the hegemony? His intelligence officer, a smaller Vorthak with scars covering half his face, brought forward a datapad. War Leader, we have gathered information about this species. They come from a world the galaxy calls a death world, a planet so hostile that only the most aggressive life forms can survive. Krath Zahn looked at the images from Earth with interest. Massive storms, violent earthquakes, active volcanoes, and creatures that killed for survival rather than conquest. So they are natural predators like us. Not like us, War Leader. We hunt for territory and food. They seem to hunt for concepts. Honor, justice, protection of the weak. Our psychological warfare has no effect on them. This was what bothered Krath Zahn the most. The Vorthak had conquered the galaxy by breaking the will of their enemies before the fighting even began. They would broadcast recordings of their victories, show captured prisoners being consumed, demonstrate the futility of resistance. Most species surrendered before the first shot was fired, but the humans had seen all of this and just gotten angry. War Leader, called the communications officer. We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. They're demanding our surrender. Krath Zahn felt his rage boil over. They demand our surrender? Show me. The main screen lit up with the image of Admiral Chen. She stood on the bridge of her flagship, surrounded by officers who looked like they had been carved from stone. When she spoke, her voice was calm and deadly. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Coalition. You are in violation of the basic laws of civilized behavior. You have committed genocide against peaceful populations. I am authorized to offer you one chance to surrender. Power down your weapons and prepare to be taken into custody for war crimes trials. The silence on the Vorthak bridge was complete. No one had ever spoken to them this way, or what? Krath Zahn snarled back. Chen's smile was colder than space itself. Or we'll teach you why they call Earth a death world. The transmission ended. Krath Zahn felt something he had never experienced before. Doubt. These humans weren't just confident, they were eager for the fight. All ships, he commanded. Attack formation. We'll show these Deathworlders what happens to those who challenge the hegemony. The battle that followed would be studied by military historians for generations. The Vorthak came in with overwhelming force, expecting to crush the smaller human fleet through sheer numbers. What they got instead was a lesson in advanced warfare tactics. Admiral Chen had used the 3 days since her ultimatum to prepare the battlefield. Human ships had seeded the space around Cathara Prime with sensor networks, communication relays, and what the military called surprises. When the Vorthak fleet arrived, they found themselves fighting not just ships, but the space itself, missiles incoming from the asteroid field. Called the Vorthak Tactical Officer, Krath Zahn looked at his displays in confusion. There are no human ships in the asteroid field, but there were human weapons. The missiles had been launched from automated platforms hidden among the rocks, guided by sensors that had been tracking the Vorthak fleet since it entered the system. The first wave of missiles struck the Vorthak formation before they could react. 12 bioships died in the opening seconds of the battle. Return fire, Krath Zahn ordered. Destroy those platforms! But when his ships turned their weapons toward the asteroids, the human fleet struck from behind. The destroyers and cruisers had been hidden in the shadow of the gas giant, their engines shut down to avoid detection. Captain Santos, aboard the Relentless, watched the Vorthak ships turn away from her fleet. Just like a pack of wild dogs, she muttered. They always go for the obvious threat first. Her weapons fired in perfect coordination with 50 other human ships. The Vorthak rearguard simply vanished in a cloud of debris and organic matter. But the humans weren't done. As the Vorthak fleet tried to regroup, they found themselves under attack from every direction. Human fighters swarmed out of hidden positions on dead moons and disabled stations. Mines that had been floating silent and cold suddenly came to life, seeking out the largest enemy ships. The Vorthak had never faced an enemy that turned the entire battlefield into a weapon. War leader, called the damage control officer. We're taking heavy casualties. Our formation is breaking apart. Krathzon could see it for himself. His perfectly organized fleet was being torn to pieces by an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. Every time his ships turned to face one threat, another appeared from an unexpected direction. How are they coordinating this? He demanded. Our jamming should be blocking their communications. The answer came from his intelligence officer, who was monitoring human transmissions. War leader, they're not using standard communications. They're using quantum entanglement networks. We don't even know how to jam that technology. The truth was even more impressive than the Vorthak realized. The human fleet wasn't just using advanced technology, they were using advanced tactics. Every captain knew their role in the overall plan. Every pilot understood how their small part fit into the larger strategy. This was warfare as humans had developed it on Earth, refined through thousands of years of conflict. Not just the technology of war, but the art of war. Lieutenant Morrison, flying his fighter through the chaos of the main battle, had just destroyed his 4th Vorthak ship when he noticed something interesting. Fleet Command, this is Wildfire. The big ships are protecting something in the center of their formation. Looks like a command vessel of some kind. Admiral Chen's voice came back immediately. All fighters, new priority target. Take out their command ship. The fighter attack that followed was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. 200 human pilots working together with perfect coordination carved through the Vorthak fleet like a knife through flesh. The Vorthak tried to stop them. They launched their own biofighters, creatures bred for space combat with natural weapons and armor. But the aliens had never faced pilots who had learned to fly in three-dimensional environments like Earth's atmosphere. Morrison found himself facing a biofighter twice the size of his ship. The creature was fast and aggressive, but it flew in predictable patterns. It was a predator, but it was used to hunting prey that couldn't fight back effectively. Morrison was used to dogfighting with other humans, beings who were just as smart, just as aggressive, and just as determined to win as he was. The alien fighter lasted 30 seconds. Across the battlefield, the same scene played out dozens of times. The Vorthak biofighters were individually powerful, but they had no experience with an enemy that was even more aggressive than they were. The human fighters reached the Vorthak command ship just as Krathzon was realizing how badly the battle was going. War leader, we must retreat, urged his tactical officer. We've lost over half the fleet. Krathzon looked at his displays with disbelief. His overwhelming force had been reduced to scattered groups of damaged ships in less than 2 hours. The humans had turned what should have been a simple conquest into a disaster. All ships withdraw to, he began. The human missiles hit his ship at that moment, not one or two, but dozens of them, all striking within seconds of each other. The devourer of worlds, the ship that had conquered nearly 50 planets, began to come apart. Krathzon felt his ship dying around him. As the bridge filled with smoke and the screams of his crew, he sent one final message to the retreating remnants of his fleet. Tell the Hegemony Council, the humans are not prey. They are something worse. They are predators who hunt predators. The explosion of the Vorthak flagship lit up space like a small star. When the light faded, the human fleet hung victorious among the wreckage of what had been the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Admiral Chen stood on her bridge, looking out at the debris field that had once been 300 enemy ships. Her own losses were painful but manageable. 30 ships destroyed, about 4,000 casualties. Admiral, called her communications officer. We're getting messages from across the galaxy. News of the battle is spreading fast, Chen nodded. She had expected this. Word would travel that the mighty Vorthak had been not just defeated, but destroyed by a species most aliens had never heard of. What kind of messages? She asked. Mostly requests for defense treaties, ma'am. Also some demands from the Galactic Council that we stop our military operations. Chen smiled grimly. Tell the Council they're welcome to file a complaint. Tell everyone else that humanity protects its friends, and send a message to Earth. We're going to need more ships. The galaxy was about to learn that when humans decided to fight a war, they fought to win. The Vorthak hegemony's capital world had not seen war in over 3 centuries. The massive biostructures that housed the ruling council were grown from living coral that fed on the suffering of conquered species. Gardens of tortured beings from 100 worlds decorated the palace grounds. Kept alive as trophies of victory, Emperor Vex Morgul sat on his throne of bones, watching the reports from the Cathari system with something approaching panic. His greatest war leader was dead. His most powerful fleet was destroyed, and the enemy responsible was a species he had never bothered to learn about. "How many ships do these humans have?" he demanded from his intelligence council. "Unknown, Imperial Majesty," replied the chief intelligence officer, trying to hide his own fear. "Our observers in the Sol system report constant military construction. They seem to be building ships faster than we can count them. And their other forces? That's concerning, Majesty. We've intercepted communications from dozens of species asking for human protection. The Altarians have signed a defense treaty. The Centauri Federation is sharing technology. Even some former hegemony subjects are rebelling and asking for human help." Emperor Vex Morgul felt the foundations of his empire cracking beneath him. For centuries, the Vorthok had ruled through fear. Other species stayed quiet and hoped to be overlooked. But now there was an alternative. Now there were protectors. "What do our allies say?" he asked. The silence that followed was answer enough. The hegemony had no allies, only subjects and victims. Their method of rule had made sure of that. "Majesty," said the military advisor carefully, "perhaps we should consider negotiating with these humans. Offer them a sphere of influence in exchange for—" The Emperor's roar of rage cut him off. "The hegemony does not negotiate with prey. We rule or we die." 3 months later, the largest fleet in galactic history emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Vorthok home system. But it wasn't just humans anymore. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the new flagship Earth's Promise, watching the combined fleet take position around her. Human ships still formed the core of the force, but they were joined by vessels from 17 different species. The Cathari had contributed their advanced shield technology. The Altarians brought their sensor arrays. The Centauri provided their energy weapons. But it was the humans who provided the tactics, the leadership, and the will to fight. "Fleet status report," Chen ordered. 437 ships ready for combat. "Admiral," reported Captain Rodriguez, now promoted to fleet captain. "All species reporting ready. The Cathari medical ships are standing by for casualty treatment." Chen nodded. This was the moment she had been preparing for since that first distress call. The final battle that would decide whether the galaxy would be ruled by fear or protected by those willing to fight for justice. "Open a channel to the Vorthok capital," she ordered. Emperor Vex Morgul's image appeared on the main screen. He was even more terrifying in person, a creature of claws and teeth and pure malice. Behind him, Chen could see the suffering of dozens of species kept as living decorations. "So," the Emperor hissed, "the prey comes to challenge the predator in his own den. You have won some battles, human, but you will die here." Chen looked at him with the calm confidence of someone who had seen real monsters before. "Emperor, I'm going to give you the same chance I gave your war leader. Surrender now, release all your prisoners, and face trial for your crimes, or what?" Vex Morgul laughed, showing rows of razor-sharp teeth. "Or we'll show you what happens when predators meet apex predators." The Emperor's laugh died. There was something in the human's voice that spoke of absolute certainty. "You think you can conquer the homeworld of the hegemony? We have defense platforms that have never been breached, orbital fortresses that have stood for 1,000 years, and a fleet that will destroy in the first hour," Chen interrupted. "Just like we destroyed everything else you've sent against us." The transmission ended. Admiral Chen turned to her fleet. "All ships, begin the attack. Show them what a death world teaches its children." The battle for the Vorthok capital was different from all the others. This time, the humans weren't fighting to defend or liberate. They were fighting to conquer, to end a threat permanently. The orbital defenses were impressive. Massive platforms armed with weapons that could crack planets. The Vorthok had built them over centuries, each one a fortress that could hold off entire fleets. They had never faced an enemy that didn't fight fair. The human attack began with something the galaxy had never seen before: coordinated cyber warfare. While Vorthok attention was focused on the approaching fleet, human signals intelligence specialists were infiltrating their computer networks through captured equipment from earlier battles. The first sign of trouble came when 3 orbital platforms simply shut down. Their weapons went offline, their shields failed, and their life support systems began cycling through emergency protocols. "Impossible," roared the Vorthak defense commander. Those systems are completely isolated. But humans had learned centuries ago that no system was truly isolated. Every piece of equipment talked to every other piece, and humans had become very good at listening to those conversations. As the cyber attack spread through the defense network, the human fleet moved in for the kill. But they weren't alone. "All Cathari ships begin shield enhancement," came the voice of Zaraka, now admiral of the Cathari Defense Force. The peaceful aliens had learned to fight alongside their human protectors, providing defensive support that let the human ships take incredible risks. "Altarian sensor ships, paint all targets," ordered Admiral Veltran of the Altarian forces. Their advanced sensors could see through Vorthak stealth technology, marking targets for human weapons. The combined fleet moved like a single organism, each species contributing their strengths to the overall strategy. But at the center of it all were the humans, the ones who had turned a galaxy of victims into an army of liberators. Captain Santos, now commanding a squadron of 6 ships, led the assault on the main defense platform. The massive structure was armed with enough firepower to destroy a moon, but it had been built to fight enemies who attacked from predictable directions. Santos brought her ships in from above and below simultaneously, using the planet's gravity well to slingshot around to attack angles the platform's designers had never considered. Her weapons found weak spots that had been protected by doctrine rather than armor. The platform died in a cascade of explosions that lit up the dark side of the planet. Below, Platform 7 destroyed, Santos reported with satisfaction. Moving to next target, the orbital battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the pride of the Vorthak hegemony was floating debris, and the human fleet was preparing for planetary assault. Emperor Vex Morgul watched from his palace as dropships began landing across his capital city. He had prepared for this moment by activating every weapon system on the planet, turning his own world into a fortress. But he had made one critical mistake. He thought like a Vorthak, in terms of conquest and domination. The humans thought like liberators. The first targets of the human ground assault weren't military installations or government buildings. They were the prison camps, the slave quarters, and the torture facilities that dotted the capital. Sergeant Williams, now a major, led his regiment through the worst of the slave districts. What they found there made even battle-hardened soldiers sick with rage. "This is Major Williams to all units," he radioed. "Priority 1 is getting civilians to safety. Priority 2 is making sure none of these bastards escape to do this again." The Vorthak ground forces were formidable, creatures bred for close combat with natural weapons and armor. But they had never faced an enemy that fought with controlled fury, professional skill, and absolute determination. The human soldiers moved through the city like an unstoppable force. They used every lesson learned in 100 wars on Earth, every tactic developed through millennia of conflict. But more than that, they fought with the knowledge that they were ending something evil. The final confrontation came at the Imperial Palace. Emperor Vex Morgul waited in his throne room, surrounded by his personal guard and the preserved remains of his greatest victories. When the humans finally reached him, he expected to die in glorious battle as a warrior should. Instead, Admiral Chen walked into his throne room with a small escort and a pair of handcuffs. "Emperor Vex Morgul," she said formally, "you are under arrest for crimes against sentient life, genocide, and systematic torture. You will be tried before a galactic tribunal." The Emperor looked around his throne room, at the bones of his victims, at the suffering he had caused, at the empire he had built on cruelty. Then he looked at the human admiral who had brought it all crashing down. "What are you?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Chen considered the question seriously. "We're what happens when a death world teaches its children that the strong have a duty to protect the weak." The trial of Emperor Vex Morgul was held on Earth, in the rebuilt halls of the International Criminal Court. Representatives from 200 species came to watch as the galaxy's greatest monster was held accountable for his crimes. The evidence was overwhelming. The testimony from survivors was heartbreaking. The verdict was unanimous. Forsaken in deep space, Part 1, the Kethmaran drifted silent and cold through the empty darkness between stars. Captain Veltar pressed her scaled hand against the bridge viewport and stared into the endless black. No stars twinkled nearby. No planets offered hope. They were truly alone in the void. "Captain," called Communications Officer Zefka from his station. His voice was weak, barely above a whisper. Still no response to our distress signal. Veltar's heart sank deeper. It had been 23 days since their quantum drive exploded. 23 days of broadcasting emergency signals into the dark. 23 days of waiting for rescue that never came. The Keth Moran was a pride of the Zephyrian Confederacy. She was a diplomatic vessel, sleek and beautiful, built with the finest technology their ancient civilization could offer. Her hull gleamed silver even in the dim emergency lighting. Her systems were supposed to be perfect. Her crew of 200 was among the best in the fleet. None of that mattered now. Life support status? Veltar asked, though she dreaded the answer. Chief Engineer Mortek looked up from his console. His usually bright blue skin had turned pale gray. Dark circles ringed his large eyes. Oxygen at 37% and falling. At current consumption rates, we have maybe 4 days left. Veltar closed her eyes. 4 days. After sailing between the stars for over 3,000 years, the mighty Zephyrian Confederacy was about to lose a diplomatic mission to simple mechanical failure. The shame burned worse than the cold air in her lungs. What about the escape pods? Asked First Officer Jindar. Checked them yesterday, Mortek replied. Half are damaged from the explosion. The others don't have enough range to reach any inhabited system. We're too far from everything. The bridge fell quiet except for the soft hum of failing life support systems. Veltar had served in the Confederate Navy for 40 years. She had seen battles, survived attacks by space pirates, and negotiated peace treaties with hostile aliens, but she had never faced anything like this. The worst part was the silence from space. Their long-range communication still worked. Their distress beacon painted their location across dozens of star systems. Every major power in this region should have heard their call for help by now. The Alteran Empire controlled the nearest systems. They had fast ships and good medical facilities. Veltar had met Emperor Thakmor several times during trade negotiations. Surely he would send help. The Crystalline Collective was further away but had excellent rescue technology. Their ships could travel faster than almost anyone else. They must have heard the distress signal. Even the Void Runners, those mysterious nomads who lived between the stars, sometimes helped ships in trouble. Where were they now? Captain, Zefka said softly. I'm picking up some chatter on the diplomatic channels. Ships are talking about us. Veltar felt a spark of hope. What are they saying? Zefka's face darkened. The Alterans are discussing whether rescue is worth the cost. They say we're too far out of their normal shipping routes. The hope died. Veltar's hands tightened into fists. Too far, too expensive. This was a Confederate diplomatic vessel with 200 souls aboard. How could cost matter? The Crystalline Collective is debating in their council. Zefka continued. They've been arguing for 6 days about proper procedures for cross-border rescue operations. 6 days of debate while people died. Veltar wanted to scream. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations were letting bureaucracy kill her crew. Any word from the Void Runners? Nothing, Captain. Complete radio silence. Dr. Laswin appeared on the bridge. The ship's chief medical officer moved slowly, conserving oxygen. Her usually perfect uniform hung loose on her thin frame. Captain, I need to report on crew medical status, she said. Veltar nodded, bracing herself for more bad news. 15 crew members are unconscious from oxygen deprivation. 30 more are showing severe symptoms. Everyone is weak and having trouble thinking clearly. Dr. Laswin paused. We have maybe 3 days before people start dying. Maybe less, 3 days, not 4. The situation was getting worse faster than expected. Doctor, prepare the ceremonial stasis pods, Veltar ordered quietly. Dr. Laswin's eyes widened. The ceremonial pods were a last resort, meant to preserve a few crew members in deep sleep while the rest died with honor. It was an ancient Zephyrian tradition for hopeless situations. Captain, surely someone will respond, Dr. Laswin said. We're an important diplomatic mission. The Confederate government will pressure someone to help us. Veltar shook her head. The Confederate capital is 200 light-years away. Even if they ordered an immediate rescue, no ship could reach us in time. We're on our own. She looked around the bridge at her officers. They were good people, loyal and brave. They had followed her on this mission to negotiate new trade agreements with distant worlds. They trusted her to bring them home safely. She had failed them. There is one more option, said Jindar hesitantly. What? We could try broadcasting on the emergency frequencies used by younger species. The Korath Federation, the Nexus Alliance, even the humans. Several officers made sounds of disgust. The humans were barely 50 years into space travel. They had crude fusion engines and primitive computers. Their ships were slow, ugly, and unreliable. What could they possibly do that advanced civilizations could not? The humans don't even have ships in this region, Mortek said. Their longest-range vessels can barely reach their own colonies. It couldn't hurt to try, Jindar insisted. If the major powers won't help us, maybe someone else will. Veltar considered it. Broadcasting to primitive species would be humiliating. If word got back to the Confederate Council that she had begged help from humans, her career would be over. The Zephyrian people believed they were naturally superior to younger races. Asking for rescue from humans would shame the entire Confederacy. But her crew was dying. Do it, she ordered. Broadcast on all emergency frequencies. Send our location and status to everyone. Zefka's fingers moved across his console. Broadcasting now, Captain. The message went out into the dark. A proud Zephyrian diplomatic vessel, helpless and dying, calling for rescue from anyone who would listen, even primitive humans. Veltar returned to the viewport. The stars looked so far away, cold and uncaring like the civilizations that should have helped but chose not to. She thought about her crew, sleeping in cold quarters to save oxygen. She thought about the families back home, who would never see their loved ones again. The Zephyrian Confederacy had ruled this region of space for 3 millennia. They had built great cities among the stars and spread their culture to dozens of worlds. They considered themselves the guardians of civilization itself. Now they were going to die forgotten in the empty dark, abandoned by those they thought were allies. Veltar closed her eyes and tried to prepare herself for what was coming. In a few hours, she would have to choose which crew members went into the ceremonial pods. The rest would gather in the main hall for the traditional farewell ceremony. They would speak of honor and duty while their lungs fought for breath. It was a fitting end for a proud people, she supposed. They would die as Zephyrians had always died, with dignity and courage. But she wished just once someone had answered their call for help. Forsaken in deep space, Part 2 Captain Veltar stood in the ship's main hall, watching her crew prepare for the end. They moved slowly in the thin air but with quiet dignity. Some meditated in the traditional Zephyrian way. Others spoke softly with friends, sharing final words. The ceremonial stasis pod stood ready in the corner. Only 12 pods for 200 people. Veltar had chosen the youngest crew members with the best chance of survival. They would sleep in the pods while the ship drifted through space, hoping someone might find them years from now. The rest would die tonight. Dr. Laswin approached with a small device in her hand. Captain, the ceremonial sleep gas is ready. When you give the word, it will fill the hall. Everyone will fall asleep peacefully. No pain, no fear, Veltar nodded. It was time to speak the traditional farewell words to her crew. She opened her mouth to begin the ceremony. Captain, the voice of Communications Officer Zefka echoed through the ship's speakers. Contact on long-range sensors. Ship approaching fast. The hall fell silent. Veltar felt her heart jump. What kind of ship? Unknown configuration, Captain. But it's moving much faster than anything should be able to at this distance. They'll be here in less than an hour. Veltar ran to the bridge as fast as her weak legs could carry her. The thin air made her dizzy, but hope gave her strength. On the main screen, she could see a small dot of light growing larger. Have they responded to our signals? She asked. Yes, Captain. Audio message coming through now. The bridge speakers crackled to life. A strange voice spoke in accented but clear galactic standard. Zephyrian vessel Kethmaran, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Indomitable. We received your distress call and are moving to assist. Please respond with your current status and medical needs. The bridge crew stared at each other in shock. A human ship. Actually responding. Actually coming to help, humans? Whispered First Officer Jindar. How is that possible? Their ships can't travel this far. Veltar grabbed the communications microphone with shaking hands. UES Indomitable, this is Captain Veltar of the Kethmaran. We have 200 crew members aboard. Life support failing. Oxygen at critical levels. Multiple crew unconscious, please. We need immediate assistance. Copy that, Kethmaran. We're pushing our engines to maximum. ETA 47 minutes. Hold on, we're coming. The simple words hit Veltar like a physical blow. Someone was coming. Someone had heard their call and was actually coming to help. After 23 days of abandonment by advanced civilizations, a primitive human ship was racing through space to save them. "How fast are they moving?" she asked. Navigation Officer Tilwyn checked his instruments. "Captain, they're traveling at speeds I've never seen before. Much faster than their ship should be capable of. Are you sure it's a human vessel?" "Confirming now." Tilwyn ran deep scans. "Definitely human design, but heavily modified. The engine signature is unlike anything in our database." Veltar stared at the approaching ship on the main screen. She had met humans before during diplomatic functions. They were young and energetic, but their technology was crude compared to Zephyrian standards. Their ships were built like flying metal boxes, ugly and functional rather than elegant. This ship looked different. It was still clearly human in design, but sleeker somehow. Faster, more advanced than anything humans should have been able to build. "Captain Chen," Veltar spoke into the microphone again. "How did you get here so quickly? Your ship appears to be traveling far beyond normal human capabilities." A laugh came through the speakers. Captain Chen sounded young and confident. "We've made some improvements recently. Necessity is the mother of invention, as we say. Don't worry about how we got here. Just focus on staying alive until we arrive." The next 40 minutes felt like hours. Veltar watched the human ship grow larger on her screens while her crew grew weaker by the minute. 3 more Zephyrians collapsed from oxygen deprivation. Dr. Laswin moved between patients, trying to keep them alive with emergency stimulants. Finally, the human ship arrived. The UES Indomitable was not what Veltar expected. Yes, it had the boxy human design, but it was massive, larger than many Zephyrian warships. Its hull was scarred from combat, covered in additional armor and weapon systems. This was not a peaceful exploration vessel. This was a ship built for war. "Kethmoran, this is the Indomitable. We're scanning your ship now to assess the situation, preparing to dock and transfer emergency supplies. Captain Chen, our docking systems are damaged. We cannot form a proper seal, no problem. We'll use emergency umbilicals and pressure suits. My crew is experienced with difficult rescues." Veltar watched through the viewport as the human ship maneuvered closer. It moved with surprising grace for something so large. Mechanical arms extended from its hull, reaching toward the Kethmoran like helping hands. "Contact in 30 seconds, announced the human captain. "We're bringing portable life support, medical supplies, and emergency power cells. My chief engineer says she can get your systems running again." "Captain," Jindar said quietly, "this could be a trap. We don't really know these humans. What if they're pirates using stolen technology?" Veltar considered this. Jindar was right to be cautious. But her crew was dying. Even if the humans had bad intentions, they couldn't make the situation worse. "All hands prepare for boarding," she announced over the ship's speakers. "Human rescue teams are coming aboard." A loud clang echoed through the ship as the human vessel made contact. Air hissed as pressure seals formed. Then came the sound of heavy footsteps in the corridors. The bridge doors opened and 3 humans entered. They wore bulky pressure suits with clear helmets. Their equipment looked primitive compared to Zephyrian gear, but it worked. Veltar could see determination in their eyes. The leader removed her helmet, revealing a woman with short dark hair and kind eyes. She looked young for a starship captain, maybe 40 standard years. Her skin was darker than most humans Veltar had met, and she moved with confident authority. "Captain Veltar, I'm Sarah Chen. Don't worry, we're going to get you through this." Captain Chen looked around the bridge, taking in the failing systems and the weak Zephyrian crew. Her expression was calm but focused. Behind her, the other humans were already setting up equipment. "Chief Martinez will head to your engineering section to restore power," Chen said. "Dr. Reyes is setting up emergency medical stations throughout the ship. We brought enough oxygen tanks to last several days while we work on permanent repairs." How many crew do you have?" Veltar asked. 1,200 on the Indomitable. "More than enough for a rescue operation." 1,200. The human ship carried 6 times as many people as the Kethmoran. Veltar was beginning to realize this was no primitive exploration vessel. "Captain Chen, why did you come? Your government had no obligation to help us. We're not even allies." Chen looked surprised by the question. "You sent a distress call. People were in trouble. That's reason enough." The simple answer left Veltar speechless. No political calculation. No discussion of costs or benefits. No bureaucratic delays. Just people helping people because it was the right thing to do. Besides, Chen added with a slight smile, space is dangerous enough without letting good crews die for lack of help. Today it's you, tomorrow it might be us. Over the ship's speakers came a new voice. Captain Chen, this is Martinez. I'm in their engine room. It's worse than we thought, but I can fix it. Give me 6 hours. Copy that, Chief. Dr. Reyes, what's your status? Setting up medical bay in their main hall now. Lots of oxygen deprivation cases, but nothing we can't handle. These folks are going to be fine. Veltar felt tears forming in her large eyes. For the first time in 23 days, her crew was going to live. The humans had arrived like heroes from an ancient story, ready to fight death itself to save strangers. She looked at Captain Chen, this young human who commanded a ship full of warriors but spoke with gentle confidence. Why? Veltar asked again. Why risk your ship and crew for people you've never met? Chen's smile widened. Because that's what people do for each other, Captain. That's what makes us all human. Forsaken in deep space, Part 3, the transformation of the Catamaran happened faster than Veltar could believe. Within 1 hour of the humans arriving, her dying ship came alive with activity and hope. Human crew members moved through the corridors like a well-organized army. They carried equipment, medical supplies, and portable power units. Their boots rang against the metal floors with confident purpose. After days of whispered conversations and slow movements, the sound of energetic work filled Veltar with relief. She followed Captain Chen through the ship, watching the rescue operation unfold. The humans worked in teams. Each group focused on specific problems. They communicated through small radio devices, coordinating their efforts with military precision. Martinez, how's that main power coupling looking? Chen spoke into her radio. Give me another hour, Captain. These Zephyrian systems are beautiful but complex. I'm learning as I go. In the main hall, Dr. Reyes had set up a complete medical station. The human doctor was a small woman with gentle hands and fierce determination. She moved between Zephyrian patients, checking vital signs and administering oxygen therapy. Veltar watched Dr. Reyes examine communications officer Zefka. The human doctor worked carefully, clearly studying Zephyrian physiology for the first time. Your breathing is much better now, Dr. Reyes told Zefka in accented Zephyrian. The oxygen treatment is working well. You speak our language? Zefka asked in surprise. A little. My medical computer has translation software, and I've been studying your anatomy data while treating patients. Your lung structure is similar to humans, but more efficient. Very impressive. Veltar was amazed. The human doctor was learning alien medicine while performing it. No careful studies or lengthy preparations. She simply adapted and solved problems as they appeared. Captain Veltar, Dr. Reyes called out. Would you help me understand something? Several of your crew members are showing unusual stress reactions. Is this normal for your species during emergencies? Veltar looked at the patients Dr. Reyes indicated. They were young officers, recently graduated from the Confederate Academy. Their blue skin had turned almost white with shock. They are ashamed, Veltar explained. Zephyrian culture teaches that we are naturally superior to younger species. Being rescued by humans challenges everything they were taught to believe. Dr. Reyes nodded thoughtfully. Culture shock on top of oxygen deprivation. I can treat the physical symptoms, but the psychological healing will take time. The human doctor's understanding surprised Veltar. She had expected the humans to be offended by talk of Zephyrian superiority. Instead, Dr. Reyes treated it as simply another medical concern to address. Captain Chen led Veltar to the engineering section, where the real miracle was happening. Chief Engineer Martinez had the Catamaran's engine room blazing with light and activity. Human technicians worked alongside Zephyrian engineers, sharing tools and knowledge. Martinez was a large man with thick arms and a cheerful face. He stood beside the ship's main fusion reactor, which had been cold and dark for weeks. Now it hummed with renewed life. How did you repair it so quickly? Asked Chief Engineer Mortek. His skin had regained its healthy blue color thanks to the improved air. Well, your quantum drive is completely destroyed, Martinez explained. Can't fix that without a shipyard. But your fusion reactor just needed some creative rewiring and fresh fuel cells. He pointed to several human power units connected to Zephyrian systems with thick cables. These are temporary, but they'll keep you running until we reach a proper repair facility. Those are human fusion cells, Mortek said, studying the equipment. But they're producing more power than our specifications say they should. Martinez grinned. We've learned a few tricks. Humans are good at making things work better than they're supposed to. Young engineering officer Kilseth watched the humans with fascination. She had been one of the strongest advocates for Zephyrian technological superiority. Now she saw humans solving problems her people couldn't fix. "How do you know so much about our systems?" she asked Martinez. "I don't," he admitted. "Never seen a Zephyrian ship before today. But engines are engines and power is power. The principles are the same everywhere." Kilseth looked confused. "But without detailed technical manuals and proper training protocols, how can you—" "You learn by doing," Martinez interrupted gently. "You try things, see what works, and adapt. Sometimes the best solutions come from not knowing what's supposed to be impossible." Veltar found this conversation deeply disturbing. Zephyrian engineering was based on careful study, precise calculations, and strict adherence to tested procedures. The idea of just trying things went against everything her people believed about proper technology. Yet it worked. The humans had restored power to her ship in hours using methods that made no sense according to Zephyrian theory. "Captain Chen," Veltar said, "your crew is taking significant risks to help us. What if your modifications fail? What if our systems overload and damage your ship?" Chen shrugged. "Then we'll deal with those problems when they happen. Right now, your people need help. That's what matters." The simple answer frustrated Veltar. Where was the careful risk analysis? The safety protocols? The proper authorization procedures? These humans acted like they could solve any problem through determination alone. Worse, they seemed to be right. As the day continued, Veltar watched her crew change. The fear and despair were gone, replaced by curiosity and growing respect. Zephyrian officers worked alongside human technicians, learning new approaches to old problems. Petty Officer Jackson, a young human with bright red hair, was teaching navigation techniques to Tilwen. They sat at the navigation console, comparing star charts and calculation methods. "Your computers are amazing," Jackson said, "much faster than ours. But you rely on them too much. What happens if they break?" "We have backup systems," Tilwen replied. "What if those break too?" Tailwind looked puzzled. "That's extremely unlikely. Zephyrian technology is very reliable." "Maybe. But humans learned to navigate by hand first, then added computers to help. We can still find our way if all the fancy equipment fails." Jackson showed Tailwind how to calculate jump coordinates, using only basic mathematics and star position data. It was crude compared to Zephyrian computers, but it worked. "Your people have backup plans for everything," Tilwyn observed. "Space is dangerous," Jackson said. "Things go wrong all the time. You have to be ready for anything." In the medical bay, Dr. Laswin was working with Dr. Reyes to treat the most seriously injured crew members. The human doctor's equipment looked primitive, but her techniques were effective. "Your surgical methods are very different from ours," Dr. Laswin said. "Probably less elegant," Dr. Reyes admitted. "Human medicine focuses on keeping people alive first, perfection second. We can make it pretty later. But you're achieving better results than I was with more advanced equipment." Dr. Reyes smiled. "Sometimes simple and reliable beats complex and perfect. Besides, the most important tool any doctor has isn't a machine. It's the determination to never give up on a patient." That evening, Captain Chen joined Veltar on the bridge. The human ship Indomitable was still docked alongside, sharing power and resources. Both crews worked together so naturally that it was hard to tell who belonged to which ship. "Your people are remarkable," Veltar said. "I've never seen anything like this rescue operation." "Your crew is pretty impressive too," Chen replied. "They adapted quickly to our methods. Good people in a bad situation. Why didn't your government tell anyone about your improved technology? These advancements could change galactic politics." Chen was quiet for a moment. "Humans learned some hard lessons recently. There are forces out there that don't like the idea of young species getting too powerful too quickly. We've found it's better to stay quiet and help where we can." Veltar thought about the empty space around them. 23 days of distress calls ignored by advanced civilizations. 23 days of bureaucratic delays and cost calculations while people died. Then humans had simply appeared and started saving lives. "The other powers," Veltar said slowly. "They knew you were coming, didn't they? They could have rescued us, but they waited to see what you would do." Chen's expression darkened. "Politics is a dangerous game, Captain. Sometimes good people get caught in the middle." Veltar felt anger building in her chest. Her crew had been abandoned, not from inability, but from calculation. The major powers had used their suffering as a test of human intentions. That's monstrous, she whispered. That's why we came, Chen said. Someone has to prove that there's still decency in the galaxy. Someone has to show that helping strangers isn't naive or weak. Veltar looked at this young human captain who commanded a powerful warship but spoke of decency and kindness. Her people had spent 3,000 years building a civilization based on superiority and careful control. These humans built theirs on hope and determination to help others. She was beginning to understand which approach actually made people stronger. Forsaken in deep space. Part 4. 3 days after the humans arrived, both ships faced a new crisis. Veltar was reviewing repair progress with Captain Chen when alarms began blaring throughout the Kethmoran. Emergency in engineering. Chief Martinez's voice crackled over the communications system. Quantum field resonance building in the damaged drive core. Both ships need to evacuate the area immediately. Veltar felt ice form in her veins. Quantum field resonance was every spacer's nightmare. When damaged quantum drives began resonating, they could tear holes in space itself. The energy release could destroy both ships and leave a dangerous gravity well that lasted for years. How long do we have? Captain Chen asked calmly. Maybe 30 minutes before cascade failure. Maybe less. Chen moved to the bridge communications panel. All human personnel. Emergency evacuation protocols. Return to the Indomitable immediately. Wait, Veltar said. What about my crew? Your ship can't hold all of us. We'll make room. Emergency regulations. People are more important than comfort. But even as Chen spoke, Veltar knew the mathematics. The human ship was already crowded with 1,200 crew members. Adding 200 Zephyrians would strain life support beyond safe limits. Some people would have to stay behind. Captain Chen, Martinez called again. I might be able to stop the resonance, but I'd need help from someone who understands Zephyrian quantum theory. This is advanced stuff. Young engineering officer Kilzeth stepped forward. I specialized in quantum field dynamics at the Academy. I could assist. Veltar grabbed Kilzeth's arm. Absolutely not. If the core explodes, anyone near it will die instantly. But if we don't try, everyone dies anyway, Kilzeth replied. Let me help him. Captain Chen studied the young Zephyrian officer. Have you ever worked on emergency repairs under combat conditions? No, Captain. But I understand the theory behind quantum field stabilization. Theory won't keep you alive if something goes wrong. You'll have to trust Martinez completely and follow his lead even if his methods seem wrong. Kilzeth straightened her shoulders. I understand. Veltar watched her youngest officer volunteer for almost certain death. Kilzeth had been raised to believe humans were primitive and unreliable. Now she was willing to bet her life on human engineering skills. I'm going too, announced Chief Engineer Mortek. If we're going to save both ships, you'll need all the help you can get. Mortek, you have a family, Veltar protested. So do the humans risking their lives for us, he replied. Besides, I want to see how they plan to solve an impossible problem. Captain Chen activated her communication system. Martinez, you'll have 2 Zephyrian engineers to assist. Get them up to speed quickly. Copy that, Captain, and it's going to be close. The evacuation of the Kethmoran began immediately. Human crew members helped move Zephyrian patients who were too weak to walk. Dr. Reyes supervised the transfer of critical medical cases. Everyone worked with desperate efficiency. Veltar remained on the bridge with Captain Chen, monitoring the evacuation progress. Through the viewports, she could see crew members moving between the 2 ships through flexible tunnels. Humans and Zephyrians worked together, carrying supplies and helping the injured. Evacuation 70% complete, reported First Officer Jindar. Engineering teams. Status report, Chen called. Martinez's voice came through the speakers, tight with concentration. We're trying to create a counter-resonance field using modified human fusion cores. Kilzeth is recalibrating the quantum field generators while Mortek works on power distribution. Will it work? Veltar asked. Honestly, no idea. We're making this up as we go. Despite the danger, Veltar found herself smiling. The humans were facing impossible physics with creativity and courage. Meanwhile, her own people's rigid training was proving invaluable in supporting their wild improvisation. Field resonance increasing, Kilzeth reported. 15 minutes to cascade failure. Then we work faster, Martinez replied. Mortek, can you reroute power from the secondary generators? Already on it. But Chief, the field harmonics don't match our calculations. The resonance is shifting frequency. Good catch. Kilzeth, adjust the counterfield parameters by... Let's try 12 degrees phase shift. That's outside safe operating parameters, Kilzeth warned. Safe parameters are what got us into this mess. Sometimes you have to break the rules to save lives. Veltar listened to the engineering team work. Martinez led the effort with calm confidence, but he constantly asked for input from his Zephyrian assistants. Rather than dismissing their concerns, he incorporated their knowledge into his plans. Kilseth's voice came through again, steadier now. Phase shift complete. Field resonances. It's stabilizing. Don't celebrate yet, Martinez warned. We need to hold this configuration for at least 10 minutes to be sure. The bridge fell silent except for status updates from engineering. Veltar watched the chronometer count down agonizing seconds. Outside, the last of the evacuees moved between ships. Captain, Jindar reported. All crew members are accounted for except the engineering team. Understood. Martinez, how much longer? 5 more minutes to be absolutely certain. But Captain, this fix is temporary. The quantum drive is too damaged for permanent repair. We'll need to reach a proper shipyard. Can the Kethmaran travel under her own power? With the modifications we've made, she'll do fine on normal space drive, but no more faster-than-light jumps. Captain Chen pulled up star charts on her tactical display. Nearest shipyard is 3 weeks away at maximum normal space velocity. That's a long time for both crews to share one ship. Veltar felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. 3 weeks of crowded conditions, strain on life support systems, cultural tensions between human and Zephyrian crew members. We'll manage, she said firmly. Your people saved our lives. We'll find a way to live together. Field resonance at 0. Kilseth announced triumphantly. The counterfield is holding steady. Cheers echoed through both ships' communication systems. The immediate crisis was over. Both vessels were safe. 20 minutes later, the engineering team returned to the bridge. Martinez looked exhausted but satisfied. Mortek and Kilseth walked beside him, their expressions mixing relief with amazement. Chief, that was incredible work, Captain Chen said. Martinez shook his head. Couldn't have done it without these two. Kilseth's calculations were perfect and Mortek knew exactly how to implement them safely. Kilseth looked at the human engineer with obvious respect. I've never seen anyone solve problems so quickly. You made decisions in minutes that should have taken hours of analysis. Sometimes fast and mostly right beats slow and perfect, Martinez replied. Besides, you provided the analysis I needed. Just faster than usual? Mortek nodded thoughtfully. Your methods are unconventional, but effective. You trusted us to adapt our knowledge to your approach. That's how teams work, Martinez said. Everyone contributes what they do best. Veltar watched this exchange with growing understanding. The humans didn't see Zephyrian knowledge as a threat to their authority. They saw it as a resource to be combined with their own skills. Meanwhile, her officers were learning to think beyond their training and embrace creative solutions. Captain Chen, Veltar said, my crew and I owe you everything. How can we possibly repay this debt? Chen smiled. No debt, Captain. This is what people do for each other. But if you want to help, teach us. Share your knowledge. Show us how Zephyrian science works. You want our technology. I want our peoples to understand each other better. Technology is just tools. What matters is how we use it to help people. That night, both crews gathered in the Indomitable's main recreation hall. The space was crowded but comfortable. Humans and Zephyrians sat together, sharing food and stories. The barriers between species seemed to dissolve in the warm atmosphere of shared survival. Veltar found herself talking with Petty Officer Jackson and Navigation Officer Tilwen. They were discussing the differences between human and Zephyrian star charts. Your maps are much more detailed, Jackson admitted. But ours show things yours miss. Different perspectives, I guess. Perhaps we could create combined charts, Tilwen suggested. Human observations with Zephyrian analysis techniques. That's a great idea, Veltar said. Our peoples could learn much from each other. She looked around the crowded hall. Humans and Zephyrians worked on repair projects, together. Dr. Reyes was teaching Zephyrian, medics human emergency techniques while Dr. Laswin explained advanced surgical procedures. For the first time in her life, Veltar saw what cooperation between species could accomplish. Not one group dominating another, but equals sharing knowledge and resources for mutual benefit. It was a beautiful sight. Forsaken in deep space, Part 5 3 weeks later, the Kepler Station shipyard came into view. Veltar stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the massive orbital facility grow larger on the main screen. The journey had changed her in ways she was still trying to understand. Living alongside humans for 21 days had destroyed every assumption she'd held about younger species. The humans weren't primitive or crude. They were adaptable, innovative, and incredibly generous. Their ship ran smoothly despite being overcrowded. No one complained about the cramped conditions or short rations. Most remarkably, they treated the Zephyrian refugees not as burdens but as honored guests. Kepler Station Control. This is Captain Chen of the UES Indomitable. The human captain spoke into her communication system, requesting priority docking for emergency repairs to the Zephyrian vessel Kethmoran. Copy that, Indomitable. Bay 7 is cleared for your arrival. Station Master wants to speak with you personally. Understood, Control. Captain Chen turned to Veltar. Almost home, Captain. Your ship will be good as new in a few days. Veltar felt mixed emotions about leaving. The humans had become more than rescuers. They had become friends. Her crew had learned so much during their time together. Engineering techniques, medical procedures, navigation methods, and most importantly, new ways of thinking about problems. Young Kilzeth had spent every free moment working with Chief Martinez. She had learned human engineering philosophy. Try, adapt, improve, repeat. Meanwhile, she taught the humans advanced Zephyrian quantum theory. Both species benefited from the exchange. Captain Chen, Veltar said, I want you to know that this experience has changed my people's understanding of humans. When we return to Confederate space, we'll recommend immediate diplomatic contact. I hope our governments can find common ground, Chen replied. The galaxy needs more cooperation and less suspicion. As the Indomitable docked at Kepler Station, Veltar prepared for the difficult task ahead. She had to write her official report about the rescue. That report would reach the highest levels of the Confederate government. Her words could shape the future relationship between their species. More importantly, she had to find a way to explain what she had learned. The humans weren't just another species to catalog and dismiss. They represented something new in galactic politics, a people who helped others without expecting anything in return. The transfer to Kepler Station took several hours. Veltar watched her crew say goodbye to their human friends. Many exchanged personal communication codes, promising to stay in touch. Dr. Laswin hugged Dr. Reyes, tears in her large eyes. Thank you for teaching me so much, Laswin said. Thank you for trusting me with your people's lives, Dr. Reyes replied. You saved more patients than I did. Chief Engineer Mortek shook hands with Martinez in the human style. Your methods are chaotic and terrifying, Mortek said with a smile. I want to learn more, Martinez laughed. Chaos keeps life interesting. Besides, your theoretical knowledge made my crazy ideas actually work. Kilseth was the hardest goodbye. She had formed a deep friendship with the human engineers, learning to think beyond her formal training. Chief Martinez taught me that rules are just starting points, she told Veltar. Real solutions come from understanding why the rules exist, then finding better ways to achieve the same goals. Finally, only the senior officers remained aboard the Indomitable. Captain Chen walked Veltar to the airlock for their final farewell. This isn't goodbye, Chen said. Just see you later. I have a feeling our peoples will be working together again soon. I hope so, Veltar replied. Captain, why did you really come? The truth. Your ship is clearly designed for war, not rescue operations. You were prepared for combat, not humanitarian missions. Chen was quiet for a moment. You're very perceptive, Captain. The truth is, we've been watching this region for signs of trouble. There are forces moving in the outer systems that concern us. Your distress call gave us an excuse to investigate. Forces? What kind of forces? The kind that prey on divided civilizations. The kind that grow stronger when good people refuse to help each other. Chen's expression grew serious. The galaxy is more dangerous than most species realize. Humanity learned that lesson the hard way. Veltar felt a chill. You're talking about the void predators, Chen nodded grimly. Among others. There are things moving in deep space that make territorial wars seem petty, species that see division and weakness as opportunities. Why didn't the major powers help us? Really? Because helping would have required cooperation, sharing resources, admitting that sometimes you need allies, not just subjects. Chen looked tired suddenly. The Alteran Empire, the Crystalline Collective, the others, they're all preparing for the same old political games, territory, resources, influence. They can't see the real threat coming. But humans can. We've faced it before. We know what happens when civilizations turn inward and abandon their principles. That's why we came for you, Captain. Someone has to prove that helping others makes everyone stronger. Veltar understood now. The human rescue wasn't just about saving one ship. It was about demonstrating a different way of thinking about galactic politics. Cooperation instead of competition. Mutual aid instead of calculated advantage. The Confederate Council needs to hear this, she said. I hope they listen, because ready or not, the real test is coming. When it arrives, the galaxy will need every ally it can get. 2 days later, Veltar stood in the communications center of Kepler Station. The Catamaran was nearly repaired, her quantum drive replaced with the latest technology. Soon they would return to Confederate space, but first she had a message to send. Priority transmission to the Confederate High Council, she told the station operator. Emergency diplomatic classification. The holographic communication platform activated, connecting her to the council chambers on Zephyria Prime. 5 elderly council members appeared as blue-tinged holograms, their expressions stern and impatient. Captain Veltar, spoke Council Leader Drakmor. We received your preliminary report about human assistance. Explain why you accepted help from such a primitive species. Veltar chose her words carefully. Honored counselors, I request immediate reconsideration of our policies toward humanity. They are not the primitive species we believe them to be. Explain, demanded Counselor Yelbath. Their technology is more advanced than ours in several key areas. Their rescue capabilities exceed anything the major powers demonstrated. Most importantly, their willingness to help without expectation of reward represents a strategic asset we cannot afford to ignore. The council members exchanged skeptical glances. You're suggesting we form an alliance with humans? Asked Counselor Morven. I'm suggesting we recognize that our survival may depend on it. The humans spoke of threats in the outer systems, forces that prey on divided civilizations. We cannot face such challenges alone. Council Leader Drakmor leaned forward. What evidence do you have of these supposed threats? Veltar took a deep breath. For 23 days, our distress signal was ignored by every major power in this region. Political calculations and bureaucratic procedures mattered more than saving lives. Only the humans responded immediately and effectively. She paused, letting that sink in. If our allies abandon us during simple emergencies, how can we trust them during real crises? The humans could be manipulating you, suggested Counselor Yelbath, using emotional appeals to gain political advantage. Then they're remarkably poor at manipulation, Veltar replied. They refused any payment or political concessions. They shared their technology freely and asked for nothing but friendship in return. Impossible. No species acts with such altruism. I've seen it with my own eyes. Lived alongside them for 3 weeks. They saved our lives because it was the right thing to do. No other reason, the council fell silent. Such behavior didn't fit their understanding of galactic politics. Every species acted from self-interest. Cooperation was always temporary and conditional. Captain, Council Leader Drakmor said finally, you will return to Confederate space immediately. We'll evaluate your full report and decide on appropriate action. Counselors, I strongly recommend opening immediate diplomatic contact with humanity. They may be our best hope for that decision is above your authority, Captain. Return home, the transmission ended. Veltar stared at the empty holographic platform, feeling frustrated and worried. The council was thinking in old patterns, applying ancient assumptions to a new situation. They didn't understand what she had learned. Humans weren't just another species to be categorized and managed. They were potential partners in facing whatever dangers lurked in the dark between stars. A week later, the Catamaran jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading home to Confederate space. Veltar stood on her repaired bridge, watching the stars stretch into lines as the quantum drive engaged. Her ship was better than new. Her crew was alive and healthy. They had survived an impossible situation and learned valuable lessons about cooperation and friendship. But Veltar couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Captain Chen's warnings about outer system threats echoed in her mind. The galaxy was changing, becoming more dangerous. The old ways of thinking about politics and alliances might not be enough anymore. Captain, called